My name is Shalini Upu. I am Director of Admission here at Reed College. And so I wanted to welcome you to this session and to let you know that if you do, you're going to hear some wonderful things about academics today, environmental studies, and so forth. If you have any questions at any point, go ahead and directly, privately chat those questions to me, and then I'll make sure that they get to the right folks to answer. If we don't get to everything today, that's quite all right. I know you probably have a lot of wonderful questions. We'll make sure that someone on our team reaches out to you and gets them answered. So as you hear our professors chat and talk, if there's something on your mind, go ahead and directly chat me. And the last 10, 15 minutes of the session is when we'll do a Q&A with your questions. So thank you again. Thank you all for joining us. And without further ado, let me turn it over to the real experts in the room, and then we'll have the professors introduce themselves. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Shalini. So welcome, everyone. My name's Noelle Netisol. I'm a professor in the economics department, and I also participate in the environmental studies program.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aaron Ramirez. I am our environmental studies biologist, so I'm a member of the biology faculty and also in the environmental studies program.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the environmental studies program. We're going to give you an overview of the program, talk about the faculty members, talk about what goes on in our classes, what some of our students are doing right now, and what they've done after Reed. And then at the end, as Shalini said, we'll be opening this up for questions. And so what I wanted to do was start off by sharing my screen with you. So this is the environmental studies webpage, and there's a wealth of information in the ES website. And I would encourage you to explore the website because so much of what we're going to talk about today, you'll find more details on the website. And if at any point there's a question, you're also welcome to follow up with us individually after this session. So what I wanted to do first was to talk a little bit about the faculty members. And we all have web pages that you can visit where you'll learn more about our research. So Aaron mentioned he's an environmental biologist, and I'm an environmental and natural resource economist. And I've been at Reed since 1990, so this is almost my 30th year. It's a little scary to think about how quickly time has gone by. But what I've done during my almost 30 years at Reed is I've really focused on how we can go about placing a value on the environment and on natural resources. And the way that I approach my research, it's very policy focused. Often I'm working with government agencies and government staff members to try and help inform policymaking so that it's placing weight on the environment and not assuming that the environment has no value when it comes to the decision-making process. So one thing that I've done, and you'll notice this on my webpage, is that I end up doing a lot of collaborative research with students. And so on my webpage, when you're seeing a date next to someone's name, that's the graduation date of that student. And so these are examples of what many Reed faculty members do, which is to include students in as part of the research experience. It could be through working collaboratively with students during the summer. So I'm often working with students, and great fun for me, I'm actually going to be collaborating with Aaron and another Reed colleague this summer with 3 Reed students on a project that's looking at how we can think about noise and how noise has an impact on the environment, and then translating that into how it affects property values. And so it's a really cool research project, and it's going to be fun to launch that. But here you're seeing some work that was done with Maya Jared. Maya was actually the very first cohort of ES Econ majors, and I ended up publishing 3 papers with Maya. And there are more. If you go and click on this, you'll see that there are additional publications that I've done with students. So that's a little bit of what I do as an economist, but I wanted to mention some work that's done by 2 other colleagues who are part of the history and social science component of the environmental studies program. So Chris Koski is a political scientist, and Chris has a strong focus in public policy, American politics, and also methodological approaches. And what Chris has done with respect to the environment is he's done a lot of research on how states come up with climate adaptation plans. So strong focus on climate change, which is a theme that you're going to hear with all of the ES faculty members. We all have a strong focus on climate change. Chris is quite a character. I know that he had a session earlier today. I don't know if any of you were at that, but he's known for just a phenomenal sense of humor and a wardrobe filled with t-shirts that are theme specific. I don't know where he finds them, but it's he's got quite a talent.
They're pretty incredible.
I'm sorry?
I said they're pretty incredible, the t-shirt.
Yeah, they really are. He should have them up on his website. And then Josh Howe, who's currently on sabbatical this year. He'll be coming back in the fall. Josh, in 2014, published a book that was looking at the Keeling curve and the science and the politics behind climate change. It was a really superb book that brought to the forefront this question of why do we know so much about the science, but it seems like we don't have a lot of political movement to solve these problems that we've known about for so long. During his sabbatical, he's been working on a book focusing on American diplomacy, which is another area of expertise. So I'll turn this over to Aaron to talk about Julie Fry's work as well as his research.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'll start by talking about my colleague, Julie Fry, who is our environmental studies chemist. Julie is an atmospheric chemist, so she does really amazing things like study the mechanisms of particle formation in the atmosphere using a combination of lab-based techniques and field-based techniques. She works in these big international collaborative projects and involves her students in those as well. So last year, one of Julie's thesis students, Bella Brownwood, had traveled to Germany with Julie the summer before to join an international team of researchers to study mechanisms of nitrous oxide particle formation in the atmosphere, and then brought a lot of that data and information back and did a really amazing thesis project related to some of that work. Julie Fry also is incredible. She has want to make sure I get this title right, a master's degree in environmental and natural resource law. So here at Reed, our faculty have a junior sabbatical before they go up for tenure, and Julie spent hers getting a master's degree in law, getting a law degree. Her thesis was about endangered salmon in the Columbia River water system and the interactions with the power system in that river. She's an incredible researcher and an incredible mentor for her students. Her website here, which Noelle is displaying there, has a lot of really awesome information about her research group. So can you click on that link there, Noelle? Thanks. There's some nice pictures and descriptions of some of the folks that have worked in her lab in recent years and examples of some of the projects they're working on. One of the projects that I'll mention that's currently being worked on in Julie's lab is looking at diesel particulate emissions here in the city of Portland. And part of that research is students riding electric bikes around the city with particle air samplers to collect the data for that and then stitch it together using geographic information systems and other cutting edge technology like that. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Julie. And then I'll introduce you a little bit to my research. So as a biologist, most of my research is focused on trees and forests and other woody plant dominated ecosystems. Most of what our research does is look at the interactions of drought and wildfire and how that impacts the health of forests, but also with a strong eye towards how a better understanding of our forests impacts natural resource management and conservation decision making and things like that. I claim to be a translational scientist, which means that whenever we come up with a new project, we try to involve the end users or potential end users of our research in the process of science. We feel that this well, it does several things. In one, it helps us to better address current environmental challenges by involving the people that are going to be making decisions about those challenges in the process of science, so they better understand the information that's coming to them from science. But then it also has this great benefit of connecting our students to people outside of the scientific community and building connections and relationships for them that they'll be able to take with them beyond the research in our lab. So Noelle, could you scroll down the page there? So if you go to my website, it's kind of a strangely arranged website. Everything is in this long linear form, so you've got to move south through the website to get the information. But on the page, it's dedicated to some of the current projects in our lab. And there's some great pictures there of some of the recent work that our students do. I should mention this picture here is where I'm sitting right now is the inside of the Reed Bio Base Camp. It's a mobile field research lab that is part of my lab. And it allows us to take all of the equipment that we use in our lab space on campus into the field. So it's fully solar powered and lithium ion battery system allows us to work indefinitely away from campus and collect unique data sets in the field that are difficult, if not impossible, for other research groups to do. And our students are very involved in using this resource. Well, could you scroll up a little bit? I want to, in that set of pictures there, so you can actually move to the right there, Noella. There's a little arrow, and you can kind of click through the pictures. So this is just an example of one of the recent projects we have going on in my lab is to better understand the effects of climate change on urban trees. Mostly of this work is happening here in the city of Portland. In order to be able to do this work, we need to gain access to the canopies of the trees. So we use arborist techniques for ascending into the canopies of the trees to collect the samples. And this work is being done by our thesis students and summer research students in the lab in the biology department and environmental studies program. So I think that's all I had for that intro, Noella.
You want to talk about the program?
Sure. So also on the environmental studies website is some information about our academic program. And the first thing to understand about the environmental studies program is that it has this really strong emphasis on interdisciplinarity. Our outline here says a religious adherence to interdisciplinarity, and we try to model that not just in our own research, but also in the way we run our classes, especially the ES classes, which I'll talk about in a second. Another important cornerstone of the program is community engagement. You've heard that from the descriptions we've given of our research programs. There's lots of ways that we're reaching beyond the ivory tower to connect with people outside of academia and make our research impactful. And we encourage the students to do that as well and through our courses. And so as a result, a lot of the research is applied. And the core of the curriculum is this interdisciplinary set of courses. That's the ES core requirements. So whether I should back up a second and say, as an environmental studies major, you have a choice of which flavor of environmental studies you want to be. So there's environmental studies biology, environmental studies chemistry, environmental studies economics, history, and political science. Those are the 5 flavors. And so you will have additional coursework in your major department, but all ES students will take this core set of courses, this interdisciplinary core set of courses across both the math and natural sciences division and the Humanities and Social Sciences division. And our program is unique in many ways, but one of the ways that it's unique on our campus is reaching across the divisions to bring students together through this required course program. So that's the core courses. And then in addition to that, we have your home departments will all have a set of requirements. So if your flavor is ES biology versus ES chemistry, you'll have different sets of courses that you'll need to take to meet those home department requirements. And then within the program itself, we have 2 courses that we currently offer. And this is really where the rubber meets the road with us modeling this interdisciplinary approach that we have through our courses, ES 200 and ES 300. So ES 200 is a course that you will take early in your program in either the first or second year. And it gives you an introduction to interdisciplinary methods in environmental studies work. And another important aspect of these ES courses is that they're co-taught by faculty from the environmental studies program. This is another unique feature of our program within the school, where we have faculty from the Math and Natural Sciences Department and the Humanities and Social Sciences working together to co-teach those courses. And so this interdisciplinary methods course you take in your first and second year will bring that expertise to your classroom, and you will get exposure to many different methods and then some examples of how to weave those methods together in an interdisciplinary way. And then the ES 300 course is really an opportunity later in your career. It's your second semester of your junior year before you move on to your senior year and start your thesis, where you can kind of bring all of those skill sets from your different disciplines that you've been building and bring those to bear on a real interdisciplinary research project with your cohort, your ES cohort. And you will work together with a stakeholder to do a real environmental science project. And so with all of the challenges and opportunities that brings, that's really the way that course is designed. In addition to that, it has a strong emphasis on building your content knowledge around the most important environmental issue of our time, climate change. And so much of the reading and discussion is about climate change. Many of the projects have a climate change aspect to them. And then of course, the capstone of all of the programs at Reed is the thesis. And in environmental studies, you will do a thesis project as well that will be administered within your home department. But the hope is that with this training you've had in these interdisciplinary courses, and especially the ES 200 and 300, you'll be able to bring interdisciplinary methods into that thesis experience. Anything else we should say about that, Noella?
I think that covers it. I did want to mention, and apologies that I keep coughing, the trees, Aaron, the trees, there's so much pollen.
There's a lot of pollen.
There's a lot of pollen going on right now in Portland.
Trees need love too, Noella, and that's how they get it.
Yeah. It's all good, but it's causing me to suffer a little bit.
Yeah.
So I did want to mention that on the ES pages, you're seeing how we've described our requirements. There's this really helpful page on the registrar's website where you can find for any major at Reed, it's going to be a PDF that outlines all of the department requirements, if there are division requirements, college requirements. So it's in one place, and I hand these out to all of my advisees because it can sometimes be tough to figure out exactly how do the pieces all fit together. So I would encourage you to look at this webpage and maybe download some of the different majors you might be interested in just to see how everything fits together. So building on what Aaron was describing about ES 200 and ES 300, one thing that's really nice about those courses is that students get to know each other at different points in their career at Reed, even though it might be that the student is ES Econ, they're being put into groups and working collaboratively with students in the other flavors of environmental studies. And so they form really strong bonds with each other. They collaborate, they get to understand how those of us who are professionals working on these issues come together with our different disciplinary backgrounds, and that we need to communicate with each other and understand each other's methodologies. So as a complement to the courses, we will bring in speakers. We have speakers who are academics, but we've also had a number of very large lectures, extremely well attended, not only by members of the Reed community, but off campus, people who represent various environmental organizations, attorneys who've been involved in endangered species litigation. I was planning to have, and unfortunately it got canceled, the person who's the executive director of the commercial fishermen for the Pacific coast, as well as an economist who was really instrumental in doing some valuation studies that led to several dams in the Pacific Northwest being breached. And so we're complementing what we're doing in the classroom with these external events. We also have students after they've had summer experiences. So we'll talk about one of the funds administered by the department called the ESSE. But in the fall, students will come back who have had these experiences, and they will present to each other and present to members of the Reed community. For our seniors, we have the seniors present their thesis research. This year it's going online, and we're sending all of them a voucher because normally we have pizza and we have food to share. And so we're going to arrange for them to have food so that when we come together as a virtual community, we'll be celebrating in a similar format as what we've done in the past. And so we're really looking forward to seeing what our students have been doing. So I'm going to bounce this back to Aaron so that he can talk about some of these opportunities that we have that are administered through the Environmental Studies program. But also I encourage you, I'll show you a web page for the college's list of fellowships and awards because it's extremely extensive. There's so much that you can do. It's almost an abundance of riches to help support whatever it is that you'd like to explore. So Aaron, why don't you talk about the ESSEs?
Sure. Yeah. So these student opportunities that I'm going to talk about, they're really an important part of the Reed curriculum. And I would say one of the other things that really sets Reed apart from all other institutions is that some institutions will have opportunities for students to get involved in research, but Reed is really committed to it in everything that we do. And one of those things is to provide these summer opportunities for students to get involved in our faculty-led research programs, but also working with folks off of campus. And the types of programs that are available specifically to environmental studies students, I'll mention a few of them. One of them is called the Environmental Science Summer Experience. And so it's a 10-week summer experience that Reed funds for you to do some either research or internship type work off campus usually. And students have used these in the past to work with nonprofit groups. So the page Noah was displaying there, the bottom title there, Indra Boving's Monitoring for Management in Rural Idaho. This was a nonprofit group near Salmon Valley, Idaho, where she went and spent the summer and did work with this group to do outreach and communication efforts for them, do things like build Firewise demonstration gardens, and ran this citizen science program they have called Adopt an Aspen Stand, where they collect data on declining aspen stands in northern Idaho. And so Reed funded that. She spent the summer with the nonprofit group doing this really cool project that she and the nonprofit group came up with. This is also an opportunity for students to get involved with some of our faculty research, so that Bella Brownwood is a student I mentioned earlier. This was how she funded the work she did with Julie Fry. I think you moved away from it there, Noah. Yeah, right there. So studying organic nitrate particulate matter formation in the atmosphere. This was the fund that allowed for her to go to Germany with Julie Fry to do this really awesome atmospheric chemistry research. In addition to the SE program, that's what we call it, it's acronym for the Environmental Science Summer Experience, is some either departmental or general fellowships and awards that our students can apply for that allow for similar summer experiences. And then this one that Noah was displaying here is a new one, this Mason Student Opportunity Fund. Was just developed this year. Is that correct, Noah? This is the first year it's operating for students doing research related to the Reed Canyon. And so the Reed Canyon, for those of you that haven't had a chance to visit campus or don't know about it, is a restored natural area that we have here right in the heart of campus. It's right in the middle of our campus. It separates the residential and academic parts of the campus, and is an incredible resource for our classes and for our student research projects. And this is a fund specifically for students that are interested in using that resource to do research or other important type of environmental work. And that's just a little taste of what those summer opportunities look like here at Reed that are specific to more environmental interested students. But like I said, many of the departments, the biology department has a whole suite of funds that are available, especially for field-based research projects. And then also across the institution, there are some fellowships that you can compete for across departments. So really great opportunities for in-house funding to do really great research over the summer.
Great. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what our graduates do. So we are probably at a point right now where we have 20 seniors per year graduating with one of the flavors of environmental studies. And they do a wide variety of things. So we've had students go into the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, we've had students go on to law school. Rennie Myers, who was listed as one of the SE recipients, received a Watson, which is the best fellowship ever. You're given money to travel around the world. And she was really focused on coral reefs and was certified as a diver. And so she spent a year going and studying the effect of climate change on reefs, then went on to get a master's degree, and now is in DC working on marine policy issues. So I would say Rennie is a really great example of what we see in so many of our students, which is a really strong commitment to academic research, but also wanting to translate it into effective policy making. We've had students go on to get PhDs, master's degrees. We have a number who are working at government agencies, whether they be federal agencies like the EPA or state and local agencies as well. And then many also working for nonprofits, some doing activism work, so trying to stop some of the pipelines that are being proposed for transporting natural gas in the Pacific Northwest, and students who are really actively involved in their communities, some of whom have been running for public office. So it's really quite a variety of different paths that our students have been taking. So those were the primary issues that we wanted to cover. And I know Shalini has been taking questions. And so why don't we bounce this over to Shalini for this final part where we do questions and answers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you, professors, and please, we do have some great questions, and we are on here for another 15-ish minutes, so we'll try to get through as many as we can. And like I said, if we don't, we'll certainly get in touch with you later to check in. So there's Riley is asking a question to us about how does the class progression in environmental studies get affected or change if a student is doing the joint program with Duke?
Erin, do you want to talk about that? Or do you want me to?
You might have more background on it than I do. I know it's open to biology students as well, but
Right.
I don't know of any students that have completed that program.
Yeah, I know of a few during the time that I've been at Reed. What often happens, Riley, is that students come to Reed and they're really attracted to the 3-2 program. So what's cool about that program is that you get 3 years at Reed and then you go on to the Duke program, and you end up with a master's, and then you also end up with your Reed degree. So it's an accelerated program. You have to be really careful to make sure when you're thinking about your Reed scheduling to ensure that the courses that Duke requires for admittance that you have. So like one is you have to have intro econ. So when students express that as an interest, we work with them to make sure that for the 3 years that they are here, that they are taking those courses that Duke is looking for. It's a competitive process, so the students have to apply for admittance to that program. And you can imagine, since it's an accelerated program, Duke has a very high bar for determining whether students can be admitted to that program. We do hear a lot of students when they are at our open house who say, I'm really, really interested in that program. And what happens is they come to Reed, and what you miss in the final year is your thesis. And so they see Aaron climbing with his students, and they're like, that's so cool. I don't want to miss out on that experience. And often they end up spending 4 years at Reed and then maybe going on to get their master's. We've sent a number of students. So most recently, there was an ES Econ major who wrote his thesis with me and then went directly on to that program and really, really liked that program and is now working in New York City on green power. I would say the program we've sent more students to than Duke's program is the Yale School of Forestry of Environmental Studies. And that's a really strong program as well. There are some really excellent applied professional schools, master's programs that seem to be real attractive for many of our students. So Riley, is that responsive?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Riley, for asking that. We've got another question from Anne, who is wondering, how do opportunities vary most commonly across the 5 different ES flavors with respect to career opportunities in terms of what students do after graduation?
Boy, that's a great question.
You would probably have more insight on that too, Noah, or at least some experience with where people have gone from the different flavors.
Yeah, boy, it's a great question. It's a little bit of a hard question to answer because I would say, I mean, clearly if you're like an ES Econ, it's going to limit your opportunities to maybe go on to straight bio graduate school. So some of the opportunities that are limited are somewhat obvious, but I don't see pathways as being somewhat limited. Students, part of what's interesting, and if you compare the way that we've structured this to how other schools structure their ES program, our program is very major focused. So if you are ES bio, and if you were to look just at straight bio majors, you're basically doing a biology major. And then we've taken your division and your college requirements and we've focused them on interdisciplinarity. And so you have that strength of training in a discipline, but then the breadth of exposure across other disciplines. And that makes our students very strong. So if I have an ES Econ major who wants to go on and get a PhD in economics, they're not going to be limited because they don't have the training as an economist. A lot of other ES programs are very broad, but they're not very deep. You don't have that depth of training in a specific major. And my great fear about that is that it really limits students because you don't have that depth of training. And when I'm working on these issues and when Erin's working on these issues, I would say that we come to this with a depth of experience in our field, but an understanding of how other disciplines approach these issues so that we can communicate effectively. So I really don't see one flavor or the other as limiting students. It's opening up perhaps slightly different possibilities. There are different methodologies that you'll see in the different disciplines. So Anne, I hope that that's responsive. It's a great question, but it's not an easy one to answer.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I might just add to that I totally agree with Noella that a real strength of the way we do our ES program is this depth of the discipline. But because you all have that core curriculum also, you do have a lot of flexibility. And I think just in general, Reed students have a lot of flexibility in the kinds of things they can do after their time at Reed. And I think the way the ES program is structured does give you a foundation that you can build a lot of different potential careers out of. And then I would say I've only been at Reed for 3 years, so my experience is not as deep as Noella's is here. But my experience so far with students that are wrestling with this question about which flavor of ES fits them the most, it sort of comes out in the wash when you start taking those courses in the core curriculum and figuring out kind of which courses you're really excited about and you want to take the upper division courses in that particular department. And then I think also thesis becomes a deciding factor. What is the discipline that you might want to have more well integrated into your thesis experience? And that seems to be what drives that decision for a lot of the students I've interacted with.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Emma is asking us, how many units are usually given per class at Reed? And maybe if there's some variation in ES classes with respect to units.
Erin?
I don't think there's any variation with the way our program does it. Reed's units are probably different from a lot of other systems you may be looking at. And most of the time our lecture lab courses, for example, are a full unit course. And things that have lower contact hours, seminar discussions and things are half unit courses. And pretty much all courses fit into that, either half unit or full unit, with the exception of humanities, which you take in your first year, which is a 1.5 unit course. But within the ES program, all of our courses, trying to think if any of our core are half unit, they're all full unit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have any half unit courses currently in our ES curriculum. In your home department requirements, there may be some half unit courses. I know, for example, in biology, we offer these upper division 400 level seminar courses that are an opportunity to dive a little deeper into the literature base on some particular topics that aren't covered in our broader 300 level curriculum. And those are half unit courses that meet once a week and discuss papers. It's actually modeled after a graduate education style discussion course that you would have in graduate school. And the students really like those.
And Emma, it's pretty common. So when students are taking courses, it would be that you would have 3 or 4 courses each semester. So for entering students, Humanities 110 is 1.5 units each semester. And then a student might, in addition to that, take 2 or maybe 3 other courses. For the students who are thinking about ES Bio or ES Chem, we really emphasize to those students that you have to be in the Intro Bio and Intro Chem courses in your first year. And part of what that also does is it gives students, we have a lot of students who are interested in study abroad. It gives them flexibility in their schedule later on to take that semester off. Many of them do the School for Field Studies and then come back with that experience. And it's just great when those students come back. I want to do that. We didn't have study abroad. It wasn't nearly as popular when I was in college, and I'm so jealous.
Yeah, that's a good point, Noel. I'll just piggyback on that to say, one of the differences for incoming students in our department is that, especially if you're on the M&S side, there's less that you have to try and figure out for your schedule that first year. It's pretty well dictated that you're going to need to take humanities and bio and chem, and that's kind of nice. I think most students appreciate that lack of options in that first year. It gives you an opportunity to kind of get plugged in and get going, and then you can figure out those more creative paths through your course planning in subsequent years.
Thank you. We have just a few minutes left, so I would love to hear from Erin and Noella. What do you both enjoy the most about teaching at Reed?
We could probably say it in unison. Our students.
Yeah, working with the students. I mean, the reason I applied for this job at Reed was it was an opportunity. I saw it as an opportunity to recreate the experiences that I appreciated the most from my own undergraduate education, which were close contact with my professors. I went to graduate school at Berkeley, and I was the teacher that a lot of the undergraduate students interacted with as a graduate student. But where I did my undergraduate education in California State University, Bakersfield, and I did an NSF RU program at Pepperdine University, I had a very different experience, and the ability to work directly with faculty on their own research was a key to me being able to figure out what I wanted to do later in life, and that being able to recreate that opportunity for my students is certainly the thing that I enjoy the most.
That's great. Thank you both, and also thank all of you for joining us. Oh, Noelle, did you want to add something before we left off? Or?
I think what Erin said was spot on, that it's really, the students are amazing. I've been so impressed by how great they've been at the transition to going online. I'm teaching natural resource economics this semester, and they've been present and engaged, and just it's been a joyful experience during what is an extremely stressful time. And then if you were to ask Shalini, okay, number one, students, what's number two? It's really the faculty and my colleagues. The ES program, we have just a great group of faculty members. We all work together, respect each other, and it's fun to be collaborating with Aaron this coming summer. He keeps trying to get me to go up in a tree. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Oh, it'll happen.
But it's, and I think the students, it comes across to the students just how tight-knit the ES faculty members are, and that we work together to give them the best possible experience in the best possible program. And then on top of that, we have an amazing community at Reed. So the faculty can't do what we're doing, the students can't do what they're doing without the amazing staff that we have. So we talk about ourselves as a community, and that we all have a focal goal on learning and questioning and pushing the boundaries and making the world a better place. And we're all part of that endeavor together. So Shalini, back to you.
Oh gosh, that's a tough act to follow. That was so artfully put, Noella, and it actually reminds me that first of all, for any admitted students here, a very special congratulations on your admission. And of course, we would love to have celebrated with you in person, but we hope that you've been able to get some insights about Reed and some valuable information here this last hour. And and Noella's point about community is a really important, really striking one. And I think that where you find community in departments, in on campus, that is, I would encourage all of you to think about community and the type of community you want, in addition to the other important parts of choosing a college that you're thinking about. So certainly while academics drives your college search, I also think about the type of place you want to join. Think about the kinds of people you want to be around and the kinds of who's going to be sitting next to you, not just in the dining hall, but also in your classes, and think about the type of community you want to be a part of. So I hope we've given you a small glimpse into that this afternoon. There are a couple of questions that a few folks asked that we'll make sure we'll get in touch with you independently about that. But thank you all so much for making the time and for joining us. And stay home, stay safe, and we stay in touch with us if we can ever do anything.
And please feel free to reach out to us. So my contact information, I'm not sure, Shalini, if you can share our contact information so that if you have questions, normally I would be greeting you in my class, speaking to you after class, introducing you to students. And some of you caught me before we formally started saying that a real joy for me is when I have a student who visits my class and then they take my class in the future and they say, do you remember I was a prospective student and you were doing this. I had no clue what you were talking about, but now I get it. And so I wish you the best in your college search. I hope you find your community and sense of place, and do follow up if you have any questions for us.
It's nice to meet all of you. I'm appreciative that we're not doing this just on audio, that it's nice to see your faces, and this is not the same as meeting you in person, but I'm grateful to meet you nonetheless.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us for faculty office hours, and take good care.
Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Yeah.